with, we wouldn't have had to supplement quite as much. So my take home for that is always, always, always get a test before you buy hay. Doesn't matter that it's horse quality hay, doesn't matter what it looks like, get a test, because Dr. Tucker says without a test it's just a guess. And I promise you, I could put 100 bales out here, I can put crappy bales, crappy looking bales and good looking bales, and you can't tell me what that energy level is. So just a comment on that. So what if I don't feed supplements? What they get is what they get. Man, this thing's gonna fight. What they get is what they get. I can't afford it. I got cheap hay. They're getting what they're getting. Alright, so bale A, 30 pounds of dry matter intake is what about a 1,200 pound mama cow is going to eat a day. They're going to consume about 17.5 pounds of energy. In bale B, she's going to consume about 15.5 pounds of energy. So it's going to take her two pounds of bale B more per head per day. If you got 100 head, that's 200 pounds a day. And if we got 850 pound hay bales at $65 a bale and we're feeding for 120 days, it's gonna cost us about $2,000 extra dollars for the year to still feed that. But what if can that cow consume that much more a day? We see it, it's not every year. Every couple of years where cows have starved to death with their bellies full. Had a situation this year with it. And they literally die. We cut their rumen open and it's completely impacted. There was no way that they could break down that hay. So can she consume that much more and break it down? How much body condition will she lose? What will that do to the calf and reproductive performance? If our mamas ain't getting the energy that they want, and you got fall-born calves through the winter, them calves ain't getting what they need either. So we're going to have lower weaning weights. What does lower weaning weights mean? Lower money from the stockyard or whoever your buyer is, right? And again, will you lose a cow or two? So it costs a lot of money to be cheap. Alright, preventing forage losses. This is one of those things, it doesn't take a whole lot of input to preserve your money. So I just told you to spend some money, right? Told you not to be cheap, told you to take a soil sample. We got to fertilize. This is one of those things that you can do to really prevent losing some money. Top reasons for yield losses and forages. Fertility. Y'all sensing a pattern? Fertility is very important. Harvesting, insects, weeds, storage, and feeding. So harvest methods. So this is grazing, continuous stocking. We're only getting about 30 to 40% of what's out there. Whereas if we're strip grazing or moderate rotation, we're getting about 70% of that. I'd much rather prefer $70 than $30, right? So just a thought. Hay, depending on the situation, we can get, we're going to say about 50% of our use out of that land. If we're green chopping, we're going to get more. If we're heavy baling or wet baling, we're going to get a little bit more too. Something to think about, nutrient removal per acre, a 500-pound animal. There's something missing from that, and I don't know what it is off the top of my head. Take-home message from this is that those animals are going to remove those nutrients. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Another good reason to soil test. Effective grazing systems on hay needs. So what we see here, dark green is continuous grazing. Rotational grazing is the light green. Basically, you're going to see on the continuous grazing, you're going to have to feed more hay. Whereas if we're rotationally grazing, we're going to feed less hay. And the 3-year average of this particular study, at 100 ton of hay, we saved about $37.50 by rotationally grazing. So again, we're just going to fly through this. Annual grazing, Ryegrass, rye and ryegrass, conventionally drilled, it's going to cost you about $204 an acre to plant and fertilize. That Bermuda grass is going to cost you about $463 an acre for hay. I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know why we're not planting more winter grazing. I know that weather it affects it, I know that, but with poor quality hay that we've seen the last couple years, I really don't know why part of our acres are not planted in some sort of winter grazing outfit, and we can talk about that a little more if you want to. I'll be here for a little bit. And then we have our summer annuals. I don't have a number for those, but especially if you have calves that you're fitting to start weaning, these summer annuals can really do you a lot of good. Bale moisture, some of these I'm not going to get into in too depth because you've talked about them. Take home message from this, bale at about 15 to 18%. Tammy, do you have a moisture meter? No. There is a...
So yes, I do have the one that you pack in the bucket. It's not accurate.
Gotcha.
So I don't let anybody have it.
Gotcha.
But we do the microwave test if anybody.
Good deal. So if you're wondering about what your hay moisture is, if Ms. Tammy's not around, she can send you the information and the step-by-step guide on how to do the microwave test. They always joke, don't use your wife's microwave. The biggest take home from that microwave test is put water in it or you finna burn that microwave up. So anyway, we can do that. It's very important. If you think it's 18%, let it dry down some more because it really needs to be in that 15%. Why? We're going to see some spoilage, whether that be mold or whether it sets your whole barn on fire. And I can tell you, you're not going to save money if you set every piece of hay you got on fire and your barn. This is just a take home from that. As that moisture increases, so is the temperature. Hay storage losses. Again, you guys talked about this, so I'm not going to go too much into depth. Put it under something. Keep it out of the water and keep the water off of it. If you got to put down pallets, if you need to put down some rock, whatever you have to do, make sure you're storing it on a hill, not in a bottom, and put a tarp over it, put net wrap at the absolute least, and just keep it covered. Because you're going to lose, so here, what we're going to see is, if it's just outside on the ground, we can lose up to 60% in twine and 45% in net wrap. So we just put $463 an acre into it to lose it. And that's not a good bet, right? So just make sure that you're keeping it off the ground in a well-drained area, and make sure that you're getting some sort of covering over it. Storage losses. Obviously, if you've got 5 inches of spoilage depth that you can reach in there and see it, and you got a 5-foot bale, can lose up to 30% of it. And again, that's not a good bet. So can I afford to build a barn? Now, the numbers that I'm going to tell you here, I priced those in January. This is what my daddy does for a living. He's trying to retire. We can find you somebody else to do it. But my point is, if hay's $100 a ton, I'm going to tell you that's high, or it was higher a couple of months ago. I hadn't priced any lately. And we are losing just 20%. Now I just said you could lose up to 60%. So just 20% of your bale, because it's outside, is $14 a square foot to build a barn. For just the sides and the roof, that's a red iron tin building, it's $12 a square foot. It's not a floor. Again, that's just the roof and the red iron holding it up. $12 a square foot. So it doesn't take a whole lot. Again, that was a 30 by 40 is what he priced me. So that's, again, don't want to tell you to put up a barn, because there are other options for us. But if you're gonna be in it for the long run, it may be beneficial for you to go ahead and get something up. If it has to be outside, you don't have choice, can't put up a barn, can't find somebody, input costs are too high. Store bells north to south, why do we do that? For the sun. Sun rises east to west. If we store north to south, we're getting sun coverage across that whole belt to dry it out. Don't store it under trees. Make dense bales. You need to struggle getting a hay probe in there, basically. And we want to elevate them. Again, there are plenty of options for that. Feeding losses. Mechanical feeder is an unroller. I can tell you, we bought one of these this year. We have about 100 head of, well, about 85 head of mama cows. We were feeding about 10 bales every 3 days in a hay ring and hay trailer. Now they weren't running out completely, so I'll clarify that. We're feeding about 1.5 bales a day now. So it didn't save just a massive amount, but we saved a pretty substantial amount for us on hay by unrolling it. Now that's very labor intensive, and I realize that. But there are options: a hay ring, a hay trailer, all better than just sitting it in there. I'll tell you what my daddy's other favorite method is we had a man going out of business, out of the dairy business, and he had about 10 of those concrete water troughs, and we've started putting them in that, and they don't waste a drop of hay when they've been put in that. So my point by saying that is you don't have to go buy a commercial hay ring. There are options for you guys if we get creative, okay? Managing chemical inputs, this kind of goes hand in hand with that precision ag stuff. More competitive forages equals less impact from stem maggots. So it does go hand in hand with not the overlap. We're going to specifically break down insect and some weed management. Again, not get in depth because I think Peyton covered that, and I'm sure he did a good job at doing that. Good harvest management. This is on stem maggots. Fertilizer and lime. Are we sensing a pattern here? Strategic pesticide use. All of that equals better stem maggot control. This is the big take home for it when we talk about economics and numbers. If we have a 100-acre hay field, our hay producer, and we spray, so typically we're going to spray starting July the 4th in Emmanuel County now. That's probably shifted a little bit here because they're going to get to you a little later. We're going to spray basically 2 times each cutting, 7 to 14 days after the last cutting and another 7 to 14 after that. So we've sprayed it. We got a 15 to 20% yield increase for spraying for stem maggots. And we still lost $13,000 an acre. Not an acre, $13,000 for 100 acres because we've sprayed some sort of pyrethroid to prevent it. When we did nothing, just let it be and cut it, made timely cuttings on it, we still profited $4,000 on that 100 acres. Okay? Not telling you not to spray stem maggots. That's not what I'm saying. Again, part of this topic is to make you guys think, where are we going to, how can we make better decisions to manage those profits? One of these may be, I really put up a lot of hay this year. I had a good year. I got stem maggots. It's my last cutting, or my last 2 cuttings, and I really just don't need as much as maybe I thought because I got a good yield the last couple of cuttings. And so I really just don't need it, so I'm not going to spray. Alright? Or, on the opposite side of that, is I really did not get what I needed this year. I just didn't get the hay amount that I need, so I do need to spray so that I can increase by 15 to 20%. So again, just making those decisions, thinking about that, talking to Tammy or whoever's in McDuffie County or things like that to make those better decisions so that you can be more sustainable and profitable in your operation. So we don't spray it every harvest. That's a good point to make here. Like I said, we start seeing them July the 4th. I would say around here it's probably at least a week, maybe 2 weeks later than that. So you may only have to spray one time for them. Fortunately for you guys, that kind of coincides with what other pests do we deal with? Army worms. So things are going to be similar. So again, making those strategic decisions on when we should apply. Use the flies behavior to your advantage. Take home from this, I'm not going to get into it too much, is spray at 11 o'clock. Spray and then go to eat dinner. You want to put out at least 12 to 15 gallons of water. Boom height is low. I'm sorry, spray before 9 a.m. And why do we see that is because they're more active. Weeds. Heard somebody talking about prowl earlier, so I'm glad that you guys are talking about that. Pre's are more cost effective than you think, okay? A couple of applications of prowl here, total of 4.1 quarts to the acre per year is going to cost you $76. Your Resilon, that's going to be for your crabgrass and your ryegrass. 2 applications of that, one in September, one in February, is going to cost you about $60. This does not include application cost. Again, 2 to 4 applications of prowl and 1 to 2 of Resilon. But if we are having to put out post, Pastor is going to cost you $25 to the acre. What else is going to happen if you put out Pastor? It's going to stun it, right? And on top of that, we might need a couple of applications. Excuse me. 2,4-D, 18. Not going to stun it quite as bad, but you might need a couple applications of that. Graze on next, 14. Again, might need a couple of applications of that. Does not include application costs, and mowing would use even more fuel than spraying. So my point is, those pre-emergent applications are important too. Improper use of herbicides. So I promise we're finishing. If we're not using these things correctly, by the label, by the book, what's going to happen? We're going to see some resistance. For instance, stem maggots. I don't know if y'all saw it up here. We've sprayed stem maggots. And mind you, stem maggots are typically in finer varieties. Your Alicia, your Coastal, Russell, things like that. If you have tipped 85, sometimes you have to worry about them. It's much more rare that you have to worry about them. But because we've sprayed so much for stem maggots in our area, we've started seeing resistance in armyworms. There's a couple of factors, we can't prove it yet because there are a couple of factors that go into it, but we are having to change our mode of actions and spray some higher dollar chemicals for armyworms. So it can build resistance. Same thing goes with weeds if we're not using those herbicides right. Off-target movement. If I spray my pasture with 2,4-D dicamba and there's some soybeans over here that does not have that Extend Flex trait in it, I'm in a heck of a mess then. You are not profitable if you didn't have to pay for a lawsuit, right? Or pay for that field of soybeans. Could injure or kill plants. We're losing chemicals every day, guys, because of improper use. More so along the lines of our row crop chemicals, but I point that out to say it is important that we are using these things right, and we are documenting that we are using them right. A lot of boys over in the southwest, central part of Georgia, the Georgia Department of Ag has started breaking down on them. They're having to turn in their records this year for the first time ever. They're just randomly selecting people to turn in their pesticide records. So make sure that you guys are recorded the weather, the temperature, what you're putting out, how much you're putting out, how fast you were driving, who did it, things like that. Reduction of efficacy, that kind of goes along with builds resistance, might not work as well. Lawsuits, and then again, yield loss. So make sure we're following the labels on those. So utilizing these 5 steps may not prevent you from spending money, but they can help you preserve money. pretty quickly. Again, we're gonna want a soil test and follow those recommendations. We have the option to utilize some technology. It's not as scary as it sounds. If you have questions about it, we can help you get set up and help you find one that fits your operation. Preserving your forage quality. Our forages are only as important as our cows are. And so if our cows are not if that's not our priority, and feeding them is not our priority, and making sure that they are weaning healthy, big calves and breeding right back is not our priority, then forages doesn't really matter, okay? So think about that. Preventing those losses. We want to cut the hay. If trying to prevent some rain issues, we want to make sure that we're making timely cuts on that. Have the option to plant annuals, and we're going to manage chemical inputs without just throwing the whole kitchen sink to it. I have a couple farmers, mind you, in Emmanuel County, my guys are more row crop producers with a few head of cows than they are cattle producers as a whole. And so these guys just spray Grazone just cause. I've done it every year. I got a few weeds, and we can make some strategic plans on what product's going to work best. Do we need it right now? Why is it out there? So some of our weeds are out there just because our soil fertility is not right. So you making those decisions, having those conversations with Tammy to see what exactly we should be doing. All right, this is something near and dear to my heart. UGA has started putting some effort into it. Specifically, white male agricultural producers are 6 times more likely to commit suicide than a general white male in some sort of industry. So you are the most important asset to your farm. I can promise you that your families would rather have you without the farm than they had the farm without you. Okay? So those QR codes are in your thing. If you need help, if you have questions, if you're concerned about somebody, or you're concerned about yourself, please reach out to us because we are here to help. Now on a lighter note, these are 2 of my favorite pictures. This guy, he's pretty profitable, right? He's getting $40 to the gallon. 40 miles to the gallon by hauling those square rails. And what you can't see is there's about 3 bales in the front seat too. In the back seat. So this guy, if you're familiar with the Sitco antenna, you know that that's exactly where that came from, and it makes sense. But this guy's pretty profitable. I share this one. I hate that I took it out of my windshield because I wish it was a better picture. Y'all be careful out there. What you can't see here, Mike probably knows what I'm talking about. This is on Highway 57 going from Swainsboro to Wrightsville. This is a stop sign. Now it's not a 3-way stop. But if she wasn't paying attention and pulled out, this tractor's got 3 cars passing them. What you can't see is this is a bridge, and right here is the town of Kite. So y'all be careful out there. People don't care. All they care about is getting to that baseball game or to their job or whatever. So make sure that you have the proper signs. One thing I will point out about this farmer is he did not have a slow moving sign. And if he were to get in a wreck, they could potentially fault him for that. So get those signs. They're $24 at Tractor Supply because I just bought one. But it's worth it. So in saying that, here's my cell number and my email address. I really hope you guys got a lot from this. Please fill out those evaluations for us. You can leave them on your table or you can hand them to me or Miss Tammy. You do not have to put your name on them. They are completely anonymous. We just want some information on how to make this program better for you. But with that being said, make sure that you get your actual books. You guys should be getting 2 books from the NRCS. Please make sure. Yep. So they're on the table. Please make sure that you thank the Two Rivers RC&D and the USDA, because this is a grant-funded thing for you guys. And so far, this is only my second time coordinating it, and first time in person. It seems like most people enjoy it. So if you have any questions, be around for a little while. Glad to help however I need to. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have a question.
Yes, ma'am?
About the soil sample, red versus zone.
Yes, ma'am?
You had said somebody could possibly help with that.
So they're not gonna come out there and take it with the but they can help you get the GPS card set up. Now, in saying that, hidden on your fertilizer is something called soil
Oh, it's on Thursday night?
That's in road crops, and I know that you guys have to do up here, but not doing. But whoever's gonna put out your fertilizer, I would have that conversation with them. If not, you can get with Miss Tammy, or if you're in the attorney or agent there, and talk with them. They can get you set up with Daniel, and get it laid out on taking it for your farm.
But in the meantime, before I were to get set up, should I do a grid myself or do, everything all up down the field?
So you could, but you're still gonna have to have those maps of fertilizer.
Yeah, if you wear shorts while you're cutting, it helps it dry faster.
Yes, you would be more adequate.
It helps you dry faster because you're plant.
So that's the part that you have to work. So in terms of if you have those GPS, I gotta get some. Even if you take those samples, you can feed them those GPS and the soil samples, and they can create for you, and they'll put it on your soil, and then you take it to wherever and they can fertilize it for you. So this little thing, it looks like what goes on the DOT truck, flashing there, just goes onto your tractor. It's got a receiver in there, and it just prevents it's not the same thing as auto season, but you will see whether or not you're gonna have overlap in your spraying application. It's pretty neat. Quite honestly, not the wheel, I'd say. But that's going to be a Christmas present if we can do it quickly, because there's no reason not to. If you have a long-term program. If somebody that's been farming and, they're going to be out of it in a couple of years, it's probably not worth it. But somebody like me that, I'll be hopefully farming the next 30 or 40 years, it'll be worth it for our operation. But say that, even if you're farming 2 or 3 years and you have a couple 100 acres that you pay well, and you don't have to have it. It doesn't take much to, 10% overlap for $75.
That helps a little bit.
And that thing only starts on average 15 years. It don't take much to justify it. That's right. That's right. Should build a big one. That's right. Should look good, right? That's right. And like I said, I don't say any of that stuff that say go spend this stuff in that. But those conversations to be had about increasing the longevity of your operation.
I'm not trying to be hood. Yeah, I'm so glad.
We leave these on the table. All right. I will see y'all at the next. We had a Tuesday. I told my wife I was going to be gone. We've always had these on. I'm going to cattle. Right. And I'm Methodist.
That would take 2 seconds.
Get out of here. Pretty much.
I'm saying yes, it's
Thank you, honey.
Thank you, I hope it was worth it.
That's your copy. This is my copy. We'll fight you, too. I will be in the challenge today, so it's really nice. No, we got every time I got my healing, they got up, and then they get stuck, and we have to pull things out. We got rid of that 30 years ago.
And I had a soil test back and I knew it was on. I'd go ahead and have them put out the fertilizer now and then come back. Give me some time to get that. And I could do it. Just for the sheer fact of come back in. So it's not, we're not ready to put out our product yet. So I will go ahead and get my line out and then come in sometime after Easter.
Probably a little bit of a head germinated, but you know.
That way you give your alarm a little time.
You still have to get some control.
Well, we're not in the loop.
Oh, yeah, immediately, it's the start. Especially after you're right. But it can take up to 12 months to break down. And that's just the thing with the fertilizer you get. When you're getting the fine, smaller parties.
2 strands. Foxtail, yeah.
Well, and that's why I like to clarify that I know the research. I can sit here and teach that to you every day. But my daddy doesn't do it. We don't, I mean, I have farmers that don't do that. But we just need to know the implications of what happens if we don't.
It is. These little places. They feel so
But yeah, it's so, I will tell you, and some people are going to disagree with me, but about half of my bachelor's degree was and I'm going to tell you, that nitrogen and that phosphorus and that potassium doesn't matter. If you have to pick and choose which one you want to put out, yes, sir. No problem.